restriction that it's going to be very robust on the notebook, and it's not going to use more than 50% of your notebook's computation power, right? Versus, and that's why it's not very good at detecting these drive-by-download attacks. Vendors like us, we have the privilege because we are crawling your website, we're scanning every URL in your website, and we can take as long as we want to finish our scan, and it's not going to impact your notebook's performance. So we're using totally different algorithms compared to antivirus. And because of and it's also because of the nature of drive-by-download attacks, they're disposable JavaScript, disposable PDF Adobe JS, disposable Flash Action Script. But so what? Well, these disposable scripts, first, it's so easy to obfuscate, as we've shown. And second, very importantly, JavaScript packing is a norm. Right? People love to pack their JavaScript. A lot of commercial JavaScript are packed. You have to buy these JavaScript, and you tell them which URL you want to use the JavaScript in, and it has all these encryption keys locked into it. So, and Google has their JavaScript packer. Yahoo promotes their JavaScript packer. And so you can't just say, okay, this JavaScript is trying to unpack itself, then it's probably malicious. So if, for example, Drivesploits, all these Drivesploit packers, somebody sets up a website and says, submit your JavaScript, will pack it for you, and it becomes very widely used, then it's going to become even harder for antivirus to detect what's been generated. Okay, so antivirus don't work. How about behavior-based approaches? Okay, Honey Client, Sandboxes, SpiderMonkey, Rhino, JS Unpack, Webpack Web, Python, and Python Honey Client, for example. Well, it's very easy. First of all, we haven't shown here, but instead of generating JavaScript, we generate VBScript, and most automated detections are based on some versions of SpiderMonkey or Rhino, and that doesn't execute JavaScript unless you want to implement your own JavaScript engine. Or just don't serve to detectors, like the feature we talked about previously. Serve once per IP, blacklist Google and security vendors' IPs, detect agent strings, detect, so all of these can be used. And also browser-aware packing, which is the browser fingerprinting. And very little but effective techniques. Sleep for 30 seconds before you exploit. If you're scanning millions of URLs a day, you can't afford 30 seconds per URL. You're not going to finish. And therefore, if you sleep 30 seconds before you exploit, well, chances are that they terminate execution before you actually do anything. Or time lock puzzles, and we don't have time to show this. This is basically, you would do some algorithmic calculation. You would need to spend certain time. You would need to spend 20 minutes in order to calculate out the right results, in order to decrypt your JavaScript. Then the antivirus vendor would just need to spend 20 seconds. And when you're a crawler like Google, you're trying to crawl the entire web, you don't have 20 seconds per page. And that pretty much concludes our talk. Finally, regarding the thread itself. Script-based exploits are going to persist for some while. Flash, PDF Flash, VBScript, Flash inside VBScript. It's seen since 2001, but it flourished since 2004. Started out by mostly used in targeted attacks. And there's a Chinese word for it starting very long ago called guama or wangma, which is what I had on my slide. That was way, way before the drive-by-download term came about. Since 2006, threat analysis of this type of threat has been harder because crime groups and hobbyists became very active. So it's very hard now to differentiate attacks coming from crime groups, hobbyists, and targeted attacks. When you're analyzing targeted attacks, that takes a lot of time away from you because you got to clear out a lot of the logs. A lot of the very good techniques in attacks today are not by targeted are not a part of targeted attacks, but rather crime groups and hobbyists. Cross-use of tools. Now targeted attack groups and crime groups and hobbyists cross-use each other's tools, which makes threat analysis harder. Sources of info include DNS information, forensics data, historic data, tools, fingerprints, and intelligence exchange, which is very important. Drive-by kung fu, drive-by techniques, only makes a small part of the success of a drive-by download attack, actually. Targeted drive-by attacks are almost always coupled with social engineering. Okay, so, and that's why it's called targeted attack. So if you know your victim's daily behaviors, if you monitor their emails and phone calls, he calls somebody and say, send me this email, then you send him that email, you're the attacker. That's called a targeted attack. And it succeeds because you are very good at social networking, not because you have some fancy skills. Well, you do because you need to bypass this in the virus, but that part is much easier. And then, for example, a lot of times you can release some information, release a critical PDF that contains very, very critical information that this guy has to open. He knows it's malicious, but he has to open it. Okay, so it depends on how good he can contain it. And that ends our talk. Thank you. You can follow us on Twitter. You can go to www.drivesploit.org and download the source code. And the slides will be available as soon as we finish our DEF CON talk. Thank you very much. Thank you.